Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar topic that is backed by popular demand, best practices for the advanced admin. Last month, we learned beginner best practices, so if you want to catch up with that one as well, that is available for you on demand. Before we dive in today, I have a few quick housekeeping notes to cover. I'm Julia Flaherty, Digital Marketing Specialist at Ledgeview Partners. For those of you that haven't been on our webinars before and aren't familiar with us, Ledgeview Partners is a business and technology consulting firm who partners with organizations to transform sales, marketing, and customer service operations and processes that are supported by core technology like Microsoft Dynamics 365/CRM and marketing automation. Through different processes and solutions, our experts at Ledgeview help you to achieve your unique business goals in sales, marketing, customer service, and CRM. We estimate that today's webinar will take up about 40 minutes of your time. It is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. All of you will receive a follow-up email after the webinar is complete with a link to access this presentation. So if you haven't already, add @ledgeviewpartners.com to your safe senders list to ensure you get this email. Or if you find this in your spam folders, mark us as not spam. We encourage you to share that link with anyone who is interested in your professional networks. To ensure the best audio quality, we have all of you on listen-only mode, but if you have a question or comment for us, just submit them in the question pane of your GoToWebinar control panel, and we will follow up with you afterwards. We will, of course, be covering all of your user group questions that you submitted during registration at the end of today's session. Mike will be going through some awesome tips for admins today, which we'll be sure to recap on the Ledgeview Partners blog. For those of you that don't know Mike Dodds, he is a Microsoft Dynamics 365 certified support consultant here at Ledgeview. He loves to share jokes and is a weatherman hobbyist, or so he's known around here. So now it's time to welcome Mike and let him start today's presentation. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Julia. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And as for the weather, it's cold. Very, very cold. As many of you have heard over the years, I am from the South. I am not a big fan of cold weather. It is the most joyful time of year with Christmas coming up and other wintertime holidays. So I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and a Happy New Year. But I am not a huge fan of the cold. So I hope everyone stays warm and stays safe during these winter months. But we do have some great topics to jump into, so let's get on to it. Advanced admin training. So these are typically a 6-hour training session. Now, if you attended the beginner admin training webinar, those are typically a 2-hour training session. So these are 3 times longer, hence the reason it's an advanced admin training session. We do not do a straight 6-hour training session. That will it's a little too much to take in all at once. So we usually recommend splitting those up into multiple sessions. We go more in depth on the basic admin training items. And in addition to that, we cover the following topics: field security profiles, business units, templates, workflows, business process flows, XRM toolbox. This is a crowd favorite. This is a huge tool that all admins should know how to use. More in depth on customize the system, business rules, relationships in CRM, data mapping, cascading rules, and much more. So we're going to touch on a few of those topics today, obviously in less detail than we would in advanced admin training, but to give you a little bit of an idea of what that would cover. So we're going to start off with relationships within Dynamics 365. So relationships. Yes, this is going to start to sound like a soap opera, and I don't intend it to, but if you've ever heard anyone from Ledgeview in support talk, or even our wonderful BAs or developers here at Ledgeview speak, we probably have used the word one-to-many, many-to-one, many-to-many, parent, child, orphan, grandparent relationships. So it does start to sound like a soap opera, okay? but they all do have true and real meanings to them. Okay? So first and most prevalent relationship within CRM is the one-to-many relationship. It's most common. These are used when you're creating a relationship between two entities where there's multiple records from one entity. Okay? It's associating a single record from another entity. Basically what that means, best use cases you can really look at, is an account to contacts, to opportunities, to cases, activities, quotes, notes, etc. There's one parent relationship and a whole bunch of child records. So one parent, many children. Hence the one-to-many relationship. That's where the one N relationship comes in. Okay, the single record can display all the records from the other entity that are associated to it. And you usually see those in a subgrid on the form or in the related section. You'll see that in the navigation area. And you can click on that related entity, and then you'll see those records in the view area. Okay, so subgrid or an associated view. Projects to project items is another one. Anytime you want to create a relationship between two entities that has many records associated to one record from another entity, you're going to be using a one-to-many relationship. Many to one, which is N to one. These are not created really by choice. They're more a byproduct of a one-to-many relationship. So you're creating accounts to opportunities, accounts to contacts, accounts to cases. Well, the flip side of a one-to-many relationship is a many to one. You're looking back up to that account. So I'm on the opportunity. There's what's called a lookup field. It's a hyperlinked field back to that account. So there's one singular field, not a subgrid, not a table, singular field that you can basically jump back to that account, to that singular one field, or record, excuse me. The relationship for each many record to the individual record is shown through a lookup field. Again, opportunities have that lookup field back to the account and back to contacts as well. Many to many relationships, so end to end. This is the least common. In a lot of cases, there are middle entities that are used between many to many relationships or between one to many relationships to create this. So a true many to many relationship is actually one of the least common. However, there is one that is utilized all the time, and that is opportunities and competitors. An opportunity can have many competitors, and a competitor can be on many opportunities. So it's many to many. So many records from one entity to many records of another. Each side of the relationship displays various records. It's done through subgrids on each side. Doesn't store any information about the relationship. It doesn't keep any information about the relationship. Okay. It also can be helpful to create a use case when you're working with a committee on an opportunity, creating a many-to-many relationship between an opportunity and contacts. That way, you can associate contact records for those committees. It can be displayed in a convenient subgrid, and you can display key information, phone numbers, email addresses, job titles, etc. However, what it's not going to do is keep historical information or information about who updated that. It's literally just you see what you get. Okay? You see their name, you see their phone number, you see their email address. It's just that subgrid information. Our next topic is cascading rules. This kind of dovetails off of the relationship portion. So what are cascading rules? Cascading rules are how CRM interacts with child records when there's a relationship between two entities in CRM. What cascading rules do is purely dependent on the cascade action and rules. So what are the rules? Okay. The action, so what do the cascading rules do? The action is what happens to the parent record. So if we have an area where it says, okay, on assign, we're going to say assign this. When a record changes ownership on the parent record, do that same thing to the child's record. So change assignment. Share or unshare. If the parent record is shared or unshared, do the same thing to the child record. Roll-up view. These are activities that are related to custom entities. Only in Dynamics 365. It's not available on older versions of CRM. This is very important because it allows you to take custom entities, roll it up, so those activities, so you have activities on, let's say you have a custom entity called projects, and those activities, projects related to accounts. You can take the activities that are associated to projects and have them roll up and show under accounts. Basically, it's an all or none. You can either do it or not do it. Okay. Reparented. This is your action. This is one of the most confusing cascading actions. Reparented simply is saying when the parent is changed. So the easiest way to look at this is an activity. An activity is associated or regarded to another record. So an activity is associated to Mike's truck stop. And we realize, oh shoot, that shouldn't have been associated to Mike's truck stop, the account. It should have been associated to Julia's taco stand. Okay, so we reparented. We change the parent from Mike's truck stop to Julia's taco stand. That is a change in parent. Okay, so that's the action. Now, that action will then create another action. I was the owner in CRM of Mike's truck stop, the account. Julia is the owner in CRM of Julia's taco stand. I'm still the owner of the activity. That hasn't changed. So it's not assign. Okay? It's not the action of assign. The activity still belongs to me, but the parent, so who the activity is regarding, that has changed, and the owner of that parent is different. So that means that Julia now has shared access to my activity. That's what reparented means. Okay? That is a very confusing cascading rule, and it trips up many, many admins. Okay? Deleted. The record is deleted. You cascade that down. You just deleted all your child activities. That is very, very prevalent on accounts. You delete an account, say goodbye to your contacts, your opportunities, your activities, so on and so forth. It'll just keep cascading all the way down. If you delete your accounts, it's a very, very dangerous thing to do. You merge the parent record is merged, that corresponding action goes to the child. However, actions are dependent on rules. So those rules, so the action is saying this is what happened to the parent. The rule is saying, well, now what's going to happen to the child? Okay? So assign, cascade all. If we say cascade all, so we have the account Mike's truck stop. Changes from the owner as Mike to Julia. If I say cascade all to the children, that means in the relationship is accounts and contacts. That means all of the contacts that are under Mike's truck stop are then going to be reassigned to Julia. Even the ones that are no longer active. Okay, so even inactive contacts. This is really important when it comes to activities, because you could have closed activities going back to, 4 or 5 years ago, still in the system, to owners that are no longer with the company. Okay, so the disabled users, they get reassigned to a new person in CRM. And then you see in the social pane, oh, these changed. And then now they're at the top of my list. And why did that change? Why am I now seeing an email back from 2015 in my name? That doesn't make any sense. These are common questions that admins will see from their users when it comes to an assignment change and the effects of them. To avoid these kind of issues, I would set the cascade rule to active records. Okay, that means the change is only going to happen on active child records, so ones that are open. Okay, cascade user owned. This would really apply to like a share or unshare. If I share Mike's truck stop with someone, it's only going to share the child records that are also owned by me. Cascade none, that means cascading is not going to take place. The reason why cascading rules are so important is because it's a really big jigsaw puzzle, okay? And each item is going to fit differently on how you want it to be done, but this is all set up for you out of the box. And custom entities have different capabilities, and different entities also have different capabilities. Different relationships have different capabilities as well. Okay, there's parental and also different types of cascading have different capabilities. There's parental, they're configurable relationship. You have parental, you have configurable cascading, which means you can change these. Parental is locked. You would have to change it to configurable cascading. And then you have referential, and you have referential delete. And that's where we start to run into the different variations of this where these need to be changed. And so this is where you really want to take a deep dive into your system to be able to find these and to change these. Most important ones are assignment and deletion. Okay? Because assignment, once you make the assignment change, that can slow down and it can change an active record assignment. That's something very important to take a look at. So types of cascading rules. If there's a one-to-many relationship, you can choose the following for how child records are treated. So for instance, account to contact, parent. Parents it's set to this. The new owner is assigned, record is unshared, so cascade the change to all child records when new owner assigned, record is shared or unshared, record is reparented, record is deleted, record is merged. There's no cascading when the rollout view is changed. That's all locked down. Configurable cascading. You can change any of the options that we just saw, except for delete, rollup, view, and merge. And you can change it to any of the options we talked about. To change these configurable cascading rules, you go to custom settings, customizations, customize the system. You choose your entity, choose the little drop-down section next to it, drop-down arrow, click on the one-to-many or many-to-one relationship. Remember, many-to-one is just a byproduct of the one-to-many. Open one of the relationships. Scroll to the relationship behavior section. Your type of behavior, right here. So this is where it's going to say parental, configurable cascading, referential delete. If it says referential delete, that's where it's going to be looking at either it's going to remove the link or prevent you from deleting it. If it removes the link, then it's creating an orphan record. So That's where they're referencing each other. But if you remove the link, you've broken the relationship between them, and now it's an orphaned record. Where if it says if it finds a relationship between the two, it's going to give you an error message saying, sorry, I can't delete this because there's a relationship. They reference each other. So if you go to delete them and you see that error message is all about this. Your type of behavior is going to be referential, restrict, delete. Okay? So those are very important things to note. So when you see these types of things, it's all going to be about cascading rules. All right, next topic is advanced admin data mapping. This also has to do with relationships, because this has to do with the one-to-many relationship, and this only applies to the one-to-many relationship. So data mapping this is all about efficiency. Data mapping is a way to allow you, when you create a record, so you're on an account page, and you go, I want to create a new contact. On the account page, you have the address, you have the business phone number, you have obviously the account name, you have various pieces of information that are logically going to be replicated on the contact information, like their address, the business address, the business's main phone number, the account name. You're going to want to pull that information over instead of needing to retype that information in. Data mapping does that for you. So it copies data over from a field in one entity to a field on another entity. It only works when a record for the second entity is created from a record on the original entity. Meaning if I just go to the contact section and click create a new contact and create a brand new contact, it's not going to know to pull that information over. I literally would need to go to Mike's Truck Stop, create a new contact, then it would pull the information over. The other way to do it is when you qualify a lead, it will also, you can do data mapping from that originating lead to the account, to the contact, to the opportunity. You can do that as well. But one of the biggest complaints about users is having to input data multiple times. This helps to reduce that complaint immediately. So this is a huge, huge piece. Business rules. Business rules are an enormous get. These are one of my favorite things inside of Dynamics. There are different action items for business rules. The reason why you would do business rules are simply you have fields that you want to make required in certain conditions, hide or show in certain conditions. You want to make read-only or allow to be filled out in certain conditions. Set a particular value based on set conditions. Set a default value. Various items like that. Basically, what business rules were is that Microsoft was seeing a lot of JavaScript being used. Basic JavaScript about business requirement, visibility, setting to read only, and then determining, okay, is there a way that we can take those types of JavaScript and taking it off of needing code and putting it into the system itself? And that's where business rules came from. So the different type of action items that you can use business rules for are recommendation. This is one of the least utilized ones that I see, but it's pretty interesting. It allows you to show a recommendation message that performs one or multiple actions. With the recommendation, however, a user can choose to apply the recommendation or dismiss. That's one of the main reasons why I see it not utilized because it's just a recommendation. The user can still edit the fields changed by the recommendation even after the recommendation is applied. So it's not really a rule, it's a recommendation at this point. The rest of these are rules. Lock, unlock, you're making a field read-only or allowing the field to be editable. So that lock that you see on a field where you can't enter any information, that's what this is doing. Show error message. This is by far and away my favorite tool. However, it really has to have the right scenario. The one that I've seen where this can really work is it's a way to enforce a process that you have for your company utilizing a business rule. So an example would be you have government contracts. You can work on government contracts, so opportunities would have a government contract. And you can work on government contracts in all states except for Oregon, or you choose any state that you want. It could be Washington, okay? But we'll go with Oregon for this example. So your error message example, so your condition would be, condition is if opportunity type equals government contract and state equals Oregon. If those two conditions are met, what it's going to do is it's going to display an error message, and you can choose where that error message is displayed, meaning what field it's going to show it next to. You can do it next to the government, next to the opportunity type, or next to the state. And it's a free form what you have that error message state. So you can be as blunt as you want, as kind-hearted as you want to, whatever suits your company. The message will also appear at the bottom at the save button if you try to save it, meaning you can't go on until you correct the issue. So until the condition is no longer met, meaning it's no longer a government contract or you're no longer have it in the state of Oregon, you can't save this opportunity. So it's a way to enforce your processes within the system. So it's almost like a safeguard. So it's a really nice feature to utilize, but again, it has to have the right scenario to be useful. Set field values. Set the value of a particular field. It can be done in the following manners. You can clear the data. So if these certain conditions are met, clear the data out of this field. You can set the field to match another field. So set estimated revenue to equal budget amount. You could do that. Set the field to a particular value. Set estimated revenue to $5,000. Or utilize a simple formula to set the field value. Set default value. So this is basically if no value is inputted in for that field, you're setting the value. You could do everything you can do in the set field value section except clear that field, because at that point it's not a default value. Set business required. Huge. You're essentially saying if these conditions are met, you have to fill this field out. Set visibility. If these conditions are met, show this field or hide this field. Pro tip, this is a huge one. I have seen so many times this cause issues. One of the biggest ones I've seen, I'll tell you the pro tip and then I'll go over some of the gotchas here. Always remember to revert back any actions that you take if a condition is true. So if you set a condition to true, so you make a field visible and required, what happens if that condition then becomes false? So the owner equals this certain person and the opportunity type is public works. Well, what happens if I reassign it? Or what happens if I then flip the opportunity type to government contract? Then those fields stay visible and stay required, but I no longer need or have that information to fill in. So now I have a field that's required that I don't have information to put in. So now I'm forcing the user to put in fake information just to save. So you always want to remember to revert back actions, because once a business rule says that these conditions are met, they're set. You have to have something to revert them back to its originating state. Okay? That's a very important thing. Otherwise, you're going to run into issues with users. And it does not matter what you have on the base form. One of the biggest ones I ran into was I was helping out a customer, and they had one. The form had this set as base not required. So the business rule was set to make the field required and then make the field visible. On the not met condition, like if the condition wasn't met, it had the field then be hidden. But because under base circumstances the field wasn't required, it was assumed that, it'll just go right back to its originating state of not required, because that's how the form has it set. Field stayed required because that's the last state it was in based on the conditions of the business rule. It followed the negative path of the business rule. It went, okay, my conditions are no longer met, I'll make it visible. I'll make it hidden, but you didn't tell me to make it not required. So I'm going to leave it required. So essentially what happened is there was a hidden field that was required, so no one could save their forms at all. They couldn't save their records. So we had to revert back that business required field, and that resolved the issue. So it's a very, very, very important piece, especially for user adoption. One of the pieces that you don't really need to revert back is field value, because once you're setting the field value, you're assuming that at this point they've done this work, field is set. Because the option then is to clear it, but that's not necessarily reverting it back, because the field could have been filled in previously, and clearing it out is not necessarily reverting it. Scope for business rules. So there's 3 different scopes. A particular form name. The form names you are given is the main form, and it will give you every main form, including the ones that are inactive. So be very, very cognizant of that. You cannot set the scope for just a quick create form. If you wanted to have this run on quick create forms or any of the other forms that aren't main forms, you have to set the rule to run on all forms. For form name and all forms, you must be on the form for the business rules to run. They won't run otherwise. Okay, very, very important. All forms, the business rule will run on any form. Entity, the business rule runs server side, and you do not have to be on a form for the business rule to run. That's very, very important, because if there's ever an item that's going to adjust a field that's in your conditions, then your business rule will run. So if something programmatically updates it, so like a data load, a workflow, a plugin, anything like that that's going to adjust or touch those fields you reference in your conditions, you're going to want to have that set to entity scope. There are times where, no, you don't need the scope set to entity, especially for visible, read-only, business required, because those are more, you're on the form looking at it, you're affecting user interface. So being on the form, you really only need it set to that. But field value, yes, you really need to have those set to entity. Because if they're ever changed, you need those fields to be updated right away because they can affect reports. Okay, so they act more like a real-time workflow or a plugin. Some major gotchas. Any field utilized in the business rule must be on the form in order for the business rule to run. If it doesn't, it's not going to give you an error. It's just not going to run. You could have up to 10 else-if statements. You can't interact with tabs or sections. On-change events. So JavaScript on-change events are not triggered when business rules set a field value. Whole number fields with time zone, duration, or language format are not supported. And rule definitions are cached in the mobile app, so you must close and reopen the app for changes to take effect. All right, our last topic is field security profile. Naturally, the question is, what is and why would I use field security profile? So field security profile is, security is entity-based. So if you've ever done any looking at or setting up of the security within Dynamics, you know that it's all based on the entity. So account, contact, lead, opportunity. But what if you want to limit access to a field? Do you have to put those fields into a specific new entity? No. Field security profiles are the way to go. So some people will then go, well, what if I just did a read-only field? Read-only fields work, but what if you don't want people to read them? Okay, well, you could do visibility rules. However, with visibility rules, it's the business rules, and then you're also then setting up extra work, where field security profiles is all housed in one area. The issue with read-only fields is you can bypass them. There's an item called CRM Level Up on Chrome. It's Chrome Admin. And I'm not kidding when I say this. There is a piece called, the section called God Mode. This renders all of those read-only fields useless, disables them, which means anyone can just use them. Okay, so this is where field security profiles really, really come in handy. And anyone can basically Google a way to get around a read-only field. It's not secure. If you're literally looking to be secure with those fields and doing it for security purposes, you really want to look at field security profiles because it locks it down. It's on the server side. Okay, so it's secure. They can't get around it. You're safe on that end. So how to set up field security profiles? First, the field itself has to be enabled for the field security. So you navigate to the form, open up the field. You go to the details section, click edit, and it'll pop open. So back in the beginning admin, we went over the field section. There's two sections with two radio buttons that say no, yes. One of them is field security. Set the field security to yes. Save, publish, then go to the field security profiles section. So settings, security, field security profiles. Set up a new one. In later CRM versions, there's an out-of-the-box field security profile called System Admin. where all system admins are automatically given all rights to field security, to the field security fields. Okay, very important, so you don't have to set up an extra profile for them. To set up a field security profile, you will do the following. So if we go to Settings, Security, Field Security Profiles, New, and we just name our profile. Click Save. And then a pro tip for business units, every business unit has a team. Add your team. If you're doing this for all users, okay? So if you only have one business unit, every single user is right in there. Just add the one team, okay? Then go to field permissions. So account number. I want everybody to read this account number, so I go allow read yes. But I don't want them to update it or create it. So then I just click OK. Save and close. Then I create a new one. And then I add the particular users that I want to be able to edit. So, and then I come over here to field permissions, account number, allow read yes, allow update yes, allow create. If you attended any of my admin sessions, very important to know, allow create. Create is its own action. It's editing fields, updating fields, anything that you do before you click save for the very first time on a record. So that's why allow create has its own section. So you click yes. That's how you set up field security profile. And there's your pro tip that I just discussed about using teams for users. So our user submitted question. We had our system developed by another partner, and I need to know how to find all their JavaScript processes, etc. Did not leave any description. I highly recommend reach back out to your previous partner for the source code. It's the code for the development work they performed. Processes that they implemented will be housed in settings processes. The types of processes that are housed will be workflows, business process flows, actions. Actions are essentially development workflows or custom workflows. Can also be in there. Dialogues, these are being deprecated, so those, if there are any, will need to be reworked. JavaScript, those can be found in the form properties event tab on the form for each specific entity, and you would want to look under each form as well. I would also recommend looking in solutions and then looking for the solution where their name is listed as the publisher. This will allow you to see the customizations and work that was performed by them. And that's all for our user submitted questions.
All right, well, thank you so much for those great tips, Mike. If you like today's presentation, be sure to attend our future ones in 2020. We will be posting upcoming events on the blog. Subscribe to the LedgeView Partners blog for those updates. We will be covering a variety of topics in 2020, just like we did in 2019, and are always open to your suggestions. So if you have any you'd like covered, just email us with your ideas. We at LedgeView have a lot of excellent resources to offer you, whether you're interested in learning more about best practices for the beginner admin, how-tos, and Microsoft Dynamics 365, like technical tips. user adoption strategies, and more. We have more than 50 ebooks in our current library available for complimentary download, plus many infographics and blogs for you to choose from. We also invite you to check out our past user group webinars at ledgeviewpartners.com. Click on Resources at the top menu and then navigate to Dynamics 365/CRM User Group. There you'll be able to access anything you may have missed. We also invite you to join our Dynamics User Group on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/ledgeviewpartners to do that, then click on Groups in the left-hand corner below our profile picture and request to join by answering 2 very simple questions. All right, that's it from LedgeView this year, everyone. Thank you so much for your viewership in 2019. It's been a real pleasure connecting with you, and we look forward to much more. Have a happy holiday season.